So we're seeing something I've seen a lot before, so it's not surprising for me with the sale of the Anacrusis. And that is when you put things on a really deep discount, you'll see some influx of players, but you'll see this giant influx of purchasers, and then the sale, and then the players will come later. I saw this before when we did experiments. We did a lot of experiments with Left 4 Dead, if you remember back in the day, where that was like game. We knew TF2 was going free to play, so that was off the table to do price experiments with. But Left 4 Dead was an active one that had a large player base, and we could do a lot of these kind of sales with. And we saw this there as well, is that if you put something on like a half price discount, you end up seeing a lot of people playing the game as soon as they purchase it. Probably because it was on their mind and this just triggers them. When you go down to 75% or lower, like 90%, we would do on Left 4 Dead, if you guys remember, we'd do $1 or $2 sale. You would see a ton of people picking it up because they're like, oh, I want to play this sometime in the future, but it's not something I really want to play now. Or man, I was thinking about this, maybe give this a chance. Geez, this low, I just have to pick it up, right? And so you get these impulse purchases, but you don't get the player base that follows. We've actually gotten a little bit of mix. We've gotten an influx of players for sure. Sales going well. I'm really happy with the results of it. It's always that thing of like selling way more keys but less money because it's so much cheaper than if we were doing it at half price. And you always got to do that math in your head of like, would you rather just, which way you want to fall on that? And I'm still of the mind of I'd always just rather have more players because it's just fun to jump into games and play. We were just playing just now, playing some versus, playing with the faster spawn. We're doing a European time zone game, we kind of call it, noon Pacific time. That way just people in Europe can fit in and get into some of the versus games with some other people, as well as we're seeing just like player numbers up in general. So that's positive. That's good. As always, you kind of always like your sales. I'm trying to see the camera and do it. Like, right, your sales, like our sales are like this, right? So they're up and they're good. But every so often when you do a sale, like you just break out and you put the big hockey stick and it goes through the roof and you kind of catch on. That didn't happen. It's not a surprise. Like, again, I'm realistic on what our game is and where we are. I'm really happy with it. And I understand if people, for whatever reason, struggle. But at $2.50, this is going to give you $2.50 worth of enjoyment. That's for sure. And so just, one of the things with the sale then is just getting that influx of players and then getting them to play versus is the kind of the thing that you stick with. The co-op you can as well. And the co-op is made, and you see it in versus as well, because we do, if you haven't played it, there's like a little intro, like a TV show bumper on the beginning of it. And during that, there's voiceover and it kind of tells you what's happening or what they're talking about. And if you play it enough, you'll learn a lot more about the world and the characters and a lot of back and forth that only happens there. And it's funny when we play, even now, with people we play versus with a couple times a week, someone will hear a series of conversations they've never heard before because there's that many conversations in there, which I still think is a great idea. And I wish we would have done it that way for Left 4 Dead, but we didn't. But when we have less players, that becomes less impactful and maybe we should have front loaded. There's a whole bunch of questions that come from that angle on it. But I still really like that way of telling story. Instead of just a long blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that's where we are. So like I said, just got off a versus game today. We played some versus yesterday. Gonna play some more tomorrow. Might do the solo play tomorrow just to show how it plays solo and talk about some of the design choices we made during the game, kind of in a step off kind of thing. I also have to play one of our community members, Jim's got a source mod. He's going to release as a standalone game that I was going to play that I may now push to Saturday just because I'm getting backed up. But yeah, that is where we are. And as always, if you play the game and you like it, leaving a review's super helpful. And this isn't just for my game. This is for any indie game. Leave positive reviews. And if you have an issue or something negative, come into the forums, ask about it, get some clarification. We've had some of that. I've been trying to be preemptive about that because there's a couple things that aren't obvious because we've changed them. And it's always that classic of like, well, yes, we could have spent more development cycles on that part of it. And sometimes I wish we would have, but we wanted to put it into the gameplay instead. And that's where it is. And yeah. And the same with like the modding going on is we're seeing some people now opening up and requesting more modding. And we're going back to that idea of the game is available. It is available with a mod support, but the mods don't let you do everything. There's some people we should just open it up and let have access to everything. And that'd be giving them access to our perf force essentially. And part of me thinks that might be an interesting experiment to do with some people. it is one of those things of one of those nice things of like we have freedom in how we can go forward and experiment. And so I am really up for the go forward and experiment stuff. So if people have ideas there, man, I almost got done without a Teams notification. I'm sorry, I thought I had muted that. But yeah. But if you have ideas about like that kind of stuff, or you have examples of other games that have done interesting things, because I get a very crazy idea, but I should give you $1 million to play my game. I'm not going to do that. But like if you've seen other things that kind of worked or were interesting, we're always really interested to see kind of what other people have done, kind of what we can learn and what we can try, because it really is that point of we can't harm the game by experimenting and trying things, of like opening it up or giving people more access. It's just the thing that kind of we're stuck with is there's some third-party tools there that we just don't have an open license to that everyone can access. There's some things that can't change or be used or reused because of the licensing around it. Someone had asked about opening up the characters, because I think people really like Lance, to use in other stuff, and I think that's a great idea. I have no problem with that kind of stuff, but it's like the voice, we can't do that kind of thing because of the union rules and stuff like that, which again, I support. Happy to have been part of that and use union actors. So I'm not trying to bag on that. I'm just saying there's restrictions around this. But so that's why don't let those restrictions worry you about your examples or your ideas, because if you can have somebody else who did it, they had to figure out a way to do it, and I can figure out a way to do it, or not, because I'm not that smart, but I can ask them how they did it and then just do that. So there you go. Thanks.